Are you a new player in Call of Dragons wondering which faction to choose when you are just starting your account, or a returning player who is rolling on a new server? Whether you're free to play or a whale, this video will cover what faction is the best choice for you. Hey everyone, Zoraz from Casuals bringing you another Call of Dragons video here. We're going to talk about the best faction for starting in Call of Dragons. So new players, beginners, or people who come from Rise of Kingdom will have a bit of an idea here what is going to be your best choice. So first, one thing I want to mention is that when you start a faction in this game and you choose a hero and its associated faction, you will be getting that hero unlocked for free, as well as through the game by doing the story quest that you will find here, the top one, the main quest, as you can see right here. You will be getting a lot of rewards from this. And some of the rewards will include a token, actually it will include 10 tokens of your a hero that you have unlocked through your faction. So in my case, it is Waldyr. So you'll be getting dozens and dozens of these tokens over time by simply leveling up your Hall of Order, attaining 1 million power, 2 million power, etc, etc. You will get almost enough to basically bring the hero very close to being fully awakened. So it is going to be a very important choice which faction you choose, because it will mean that that hero associated with that faction will be one of the first ones, or most likely the first one that you will unlock, as well as one of your main hero and your strongest march for the vast majority of the early and mid game. Especially if you're free to play, it will probably be your main hero for a quite long time. I also want to mention that you will also be getting a token about, I think, City Hall level 10 or 15, somewhere in between. Basically in the first few days or few weeks of you playing this game, you will be getting a token that will let you change your faction for free. Now that token is found in your items here. It's called Change Faction, and you will be getting it for free, as I said, through the game, and you will be able to use it and change your faction. Now the advantage of that is that you can choose a faction to start the game with, and then let's say a month in, a few weeks in, or even a year in, you decide you want to change. Well, it is a very costly thing to change faction. It costs a lot of gems, but because you have a free token, you will always be able to do so. So you can choose a faction for the early game and then have the option to change at any time. So it is why, in my opinion, getting into which faction is best, I think League of Order will be one of your best choices, especially if you are a low spender or a free-to-play player. Not only because you get overall gather speed, which is very good, magic defense for your Legion, which is also decent, as it applies for a lot of things, since there is a lot of people playing mages in this game. And that is exactly my third point. Mages are one of the safest and best unit for low spender, because you will be fighting mostly from a very long distance. They are the units that have the most distance in this game. They attack from much further than any other unit, including the archers, which also are ranged, but nowhere near as far range as the mages. So it is one of the things that is good, because in this game, if you're going in melee and fighting, you will be getting focused and get a lot of AoE and die quickly. If you're a low spender, you will be getting cleaved by bigger spenders quite easily. Meanwhile, with a very long range march, you will be able to fight from afar and have a bit more control. So it is one of the reasons why I say it would be good to do so. Now, as well as I mentioned, Waldyr is one of the best mages hero in this game, especially if you're not spending and getting Lilia and Velen. It will be one of the hero you want to level up, whether you're playing this faction or not, because everybody wants to bring a mage march. Mages give a buff when they are in fights to all the allies around them. So Vestals, the human ones, give HP, Wilderburg give attack, and Springwarden give defense. So ultimately you want to have a lot of mages from all factions on the battlefield at all time. So again, very, very strong faction. The buffs are good, the units are good as well, because you also have Celestials, which is the special unit of the human race, the League of Order. They are flying mages, which means that they are very strong, because you can pair them with any mage hero as well as with any flying hero and get the best bonuses out of that, as well as they have a buff that makes them have more magic attack while in combat for a long time, which is also, I think, where they have to stand still for some time, which makes them very good for specific Behemoth fight, as well as some prolonged PvE fight where you're fighting from a long range in the battlefield. So all in all, the League of Order is, I would say, the safest bet. You get one of the best epic mage hero, and you get some very decent all-rounded units. They all are good. There's nothing wrong with any of them. You also get a gathering speed buff, which is really what you want, especially in the early game. So you really cannot go wrong starting with the League of Order. Now, in second place, the Springwardens, or the Elves as I call them, I would say would be my second choice. Reason being that Gwanwyn is a exceptionally solid archer hero. Archers being, again, a very good unit. They are actually the highest DPS unit in this game currently. They do more damage than mages and even cavalry. They have the highest base attack stat in the game. So they do a lot of damage, which makes them very, very strong in PvP, but also very, very strong in PvE. So especially if your goal is going to be Behemoth fights, elite Behemoth fights, and just any other PvE content in general, such as Darklings and Forts and so on, it will be one of the strongest hero that you will be able to get, especially as a free-to-play, of course, because she is, I would say, the best epic archer in the game, and she is actually similar to some of the legendary heroes in this game. When, for example, there are like 5-1-1-1 and she is awakened, I think she competes with some of them, being that she does just so much damage and brings so many buffs to her march. It is one of the strongest epic hero in this game, in my opinion. Now, of course, she is marksman, but she is also peacekeeping, which makes it a little bit powerful in Behemoth fights. I have a full video guide about how to use Behemoth fight talent trees with people like Gwanwyn, for example, because there are some talents that work against Behemoth and some talents that don't. So I recommend checking that video out on the channel if you want more details. But all in all, it means that against Behemoth, she is one of the strongest hero. I personally use her and do top 5 to top 10 damage in every single Behemoth and elite Behemoth fight, even with a lot of my alliance members being T5 and many high spenders. I am able to compete with them, even though I'm nowhere near a whale, because of a hero like Gwanwyn and her talent tree that I have built for her and Behemoth specifically. So she is also a very good choice, as I said. I really like the choice for Gwanwyn, and having her at the beginning, you will really not go wrong. But archers, while they are very good, they have a little bit of a shorter range and they are countered heavily by cavalry units, and there's a lot of people playing cavalry unit. So as a free-to-play, it will be a little bit more tricky to play because you will be getting targeted a lot in the open field for PvP, as well as the range is much lower than mages. So it is a very good unit and a very good strategy, but you will have to be a little bit more careful, and you will also have to invest a little bit more in her artifacts and her leveling and stuff before you really see her shine fully. But again, this is why I say she, in my opinion, would be the second choice to League of Order as far as having a hero that is very strong for the early game. But the difference is very minimal, so if you like this gameplay, definitely go for it. You will also not go wrong with the Springwardens. Now, the last thing to talk about is the faction bonus and the special unit. So, faction bonus, Legion March Speed 5%. Now, that is a good buff for everybody. There's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't give you anything specific in terms of economy, of course. And heal speed 5%, which will be very good, especially later on in the game when you are doing a lot of fighting. But of course, that will take some time in order to get these buffs to really do anything for you, especially in the early game for free-to-play players. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, and that is one of my things that makes me like them less than the League of Order for starting players, is that while she's very strong and she has really good archers, the special unit of this faction is a cavalry melee flying unit. So they are a very strong unit. There is nothing wrong with them, but this special unit, she cannot really go with because they are melee and cavalry. She is not melee, she is not cavalry, and she's not flying. So you could make the Forest Eagles work with some of the angel heroes in this game, but you would also most likely want to make them work using a cavalry hero, right? But cavalry heroes don't fly in this game. Currently there is no cavalry hero with flying. So you are losing a bit of potential. To me, the Forest Eagles are pretty good. Like, they're very good, but they're not targeted for free-to-play players, and they're not very prominent in the early game. You don't see them often. They're not that good, in my opinion. They just kind of lack the fact that they're flying, but you can't pair them with cavalry and flying unit heroes, right, basically. So, like, you're missing out on the cavalry potential boost that you get from cavalry heroes. And then if you're using it with flying unit only, like the 2 angel heroes in this game that are flying are very decent, but they are not built specifically for cavalry. So in my opinion, it's one of the weaker special units. There's nothing wrong with it in terms of it works well. It's strong for what it does, but it doesn't really align with the starting hero and the way the heroes are built currently. It just has a little bit of a lacking. So this is why it is, in my opinion, ranked a little bit lower than the League of Order in my choice of which faction would be best for new players. Now, lastly, the Wilderburg. Wilderburg are last, and I would not recommend them for new players unless you are a spender or a whale. because as a spender on a well, it doesn't make much of a difference, but also because you will be using a lot of legendary heroes because you will be spending and getting them, which means you can replace Gwanwyn and Waldyr with their legendary versions like Kanara and Villain, for example. Meanwhile, in the Wilderburg area, there is some strong, obviously, infantry legendaries, but there is no other hero that has Garrison in this game. He is the only Garrison. So if you're a well, this would be your choice because it's great. And if you are not a well, well, I wouldn't choose this because Bakhar, while he's pretty damn good, infantry are not the unit type that you'll be using if you're free-to-play or a low spender. Infantry are a tank unit in this game. They don't do a lot of damage, they're slow moving, and once you get into the fight, it's hard to get out. You will be getting shelled by mages everywhere, and that's the other point. Everybody who's new or low spender in this game usually gravitates towards mages because they are the safer option to play, which means there's a lot of mages out there. So if you're using infantry and you're a low spender, you're going to have weak infantry and you're going to get focused by mages. I would just say stay far away from Wilderburg if you are new to this game or if you are a low spender or free to play. Just because it will just not be the faction for you in the early game, and this is not the hero that you want to use in the early game in order to advance and kill darklings and level up and do all the content in this game has to offer. That being said, this is a faction that I would definitely still consider using your tokens for in the later game if you want to switch to it, because they have some pretty damn strong units with really good effects. Being the mages have basically a buff of attack, which is really one of the best buffs because especially in PvE, attack is the only thing that really matters. Would give you more damage to you and your team. So Satyr Witches are, in my opinion, one of the best magic units, as well as their Cav is very good. It is a very strong unit that has good buffs for open field. And their flying unit is a marksman flying unit, so that is a bit better, much nicer, because first there is a flying marksman hero, even though he's an epic, Craig. But also because being ranged, it works just a bit better when you're being flying and ranged. So it is all good here. Legion attack physical 3% is also very strong, especially for PvE content and anything in general. And destruction engineering 10%, it's not a huge thing because usually engineering destruction, you know, it changes by a few seconds depending on how strong your march is in engineering, whatever. But it is a buff that is still valuable if you're doing a lot of PvP. So yeah, all in all, Bakhar, very good hero, but more focused on infantry, which is not a unit that I would recommend for free-to-play. But this is a faction that has very, very strong roster of units that I would maybe consider switching to in the later game. But stay away when you're early in the game because it's just not going to be giving you as much benefits as mages or archers and the respective hero that comes with them in the other factions. So that's about it, guys. Of course, League of Order, I still would say, is the best option if you're a new player. You get the gather speed, you get a mage hero, you can lead your special units and your regular units. There's just a lot of versatility. Waldyr works very well, especially for PvE content. We're talking about something like Dragon Trail, for example, because his abilities do a lot of damage and he does some AoE and he can pair with other mages that do AoE. You'll be able to have a bigger impact, do a lot of damage. AoE damage in PvP and PvE is very strong, as opposed to basically Gwanwyn, who is very single target damage, also very good. But League of Order is just a little notch over just for the reasons I just mentioned. Again, you can't really go wrong. The faction in this game has a very, very low impact. Other than the starting hero getting the free sculptures from the main quest, there really isn't many other different advantage. Like, it really is going to be those buffs and the units that you have. And the units are all very, very similar and very good. There's very small differences. The flying unit being the biggest difference, really. But these buffs, like, they're very, very small buffs. They really don't matter that much. So if you like the faction because of the looks, if you like the orcs so much because of the looks, really there's nothing wrong with it. Should go for it. You really won't hurt yourself too much. It really is not a big deal. But really just because when you're starting, you're getting so many free hero tokens, it is just what I'm recommending to do something like Waldyr or Gwanwyn. Just as basically one of the best PvP epic hero and one of the best PvE epic hero in the game. So it will really depend on what you want to do, but just, you know, take these things in consideration when you're making a new account or having friends come play, or if you're just starting the game yourself. If you have any question as a new player, of course, I have a lot of videos such as the top 10 mistakes you should avoid and some of the first and best tips on how to level your heroes properly. There is very specific things in this game about leveling heroes, so check out those videos. And as well, you can always ask questions in the comment. I'm happy to help you in any way I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.